Hello, everyone. This is Sue with Irreversibly Moi, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome Jane Davenport here with us this evening here, morning where she is in lovely Australia. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Jane and her work, and I'm really excited to interview her and help us all get to know her a little better. So welcome, Jane.
Hello. Good morning.
So Jane, why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about you?
Well, what can I say? I'm an artist, I would say, first and foremost. And I'm an artist who teaches, and I love sharing. So I actually started my art career as a fine artist. It's funny that there are these categories, but they help us describe what, how we fit into the world, I guess. But a fine artist, as in I had creating work for galleries, and I found the mixed media world, and we might talk about that through the broadcast, but I found the mixed media world and couldn't believe that it was artists sharing with artists, and how much communication and joy there is in sharing. Because with what I was doing, you sort of find what you have and you hang on to that style for dear life because it's so competitive. Whereas in this arena, this community, this thing called mixed media, which is such a broad definition, it's all about sharing. And I had no idea how much joy I would find in sharing and teaching. And you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm getting a bit... So I just about everything I create now is to be shared, not as in selling the artwork, which I do as well, but that's not my emphasis. I'm creating to share in a completely different way, and it's a very new way because of technology. So what do? I teach, and I've forgotten the question. About myself.
Yes.
So I live in Australia. I'm on the most easterly point, so the whole of Australia is behind me. That's how I like to think about my life. At the moment, it's winter. The ocean is full of sharks for some reason. And the big topic in my household at the moment with my husband is what kind of shark deterrent he is going to purchase today, because he's dying to get back in the surf. And yeah, there are a lot of sharks out there, and they're big. They breed them big in Australia. So
and we know you have a lovely puppy named Gesso.
I know, she's so cute. We better not say it out too loud because she'll come scratching at the door, and she is so naughty.
I certainly hope she would. If my granddaughter were home right now, she's only 6 weeks old, I would have been sure to hold her up to the camera and introduce her to everyone. So Gesso was certainly welcome.
Oh, she's very naughty, and yes, she might come along later.
I understand. I have 4 dogs and 5 cats.
Oh, well, I aspire to your numbers there.
No, I'm a sucker. That's what it is.
I have 3 dogs and a snake, which it's not a pet. It's just a snake that comes and goes.
Oh.
But we think of him as a friend, because to think of it any other way is too scary.
Yeah, I would scary. I'm terrible.
See, we have koalas in the garden and echidnas, because where I am in Australia and where I live, it's like trees everywhere. So if you want the cute animals, unfortunately, you have to put up with some of the not quite as cute.
Right. Animals. We'll take the good with the bad.
That's life, really.
So how long have you been an artist, and how did you get started?
I've always had a creative career. So my mother's a fashion designer, and I never considered fashion or art as a career, or like that sort of creative visual arts and that sort of creativity, because I saw how hard my mother worked all through school, and I thought, that's for chumps. Like, no, I'm going to be an actress. And then I grew out of that and decided I wanted to be a zookeeper and Anyway, I thought I'd be a business lady at one point, or in marketing, or I don't know, it was the 90s and I don't know what I was thinking. So not that person. But anyway, I went to uni, was studying, not doing that well, having a great time. And then I went to visit my mother at her work, and there was a girl there drawing, and I'd always drawn through. I was the kid that could draw all the way through school and just didn't really do anything with it, just loved drawing. And I saw the girl there illustrating, and I always thought she was the receptionist, but she was actually the illustrator and sometimes answered the phone. And I was like, that's a job. That is a job, sitting and drawing all day. That is my dream job. And so the next day I enrolled in fashion school just so I could become a fashion illustrator. I loved that part of it. Rubbish at sewing and okay at pattern making, but the illustration part was the fun part. And then I actually went to Paris and studied, I know it's very posh, studied in Paris, studied fashion illustration there, which was fantastic. And then worked in fashion and through every element of because it was with my mother, and because, you know, nepotism, I had that leeway to grow, and I did textile design. I had my own fashion range. I did photography, styling. So I started out as an illustrator, and I really did have a talent for it. So I grew very quickly in that. And then I just didn't love it anymore, and I felt quite lost. I had my photography happening, and I decided, and I started photographing bugs, and it became an obsession. So it went from a hobby where I would just, you know, add like little macro lenses and filters, and I'd be in the garden all the time photographing bugs. And then I would travel sort of more specifically because it would be somewhere that had butterflies or, you know, ladybugs, or just particular. And I just became more and more obsessed until it took over my life. And by then I was married, and Angus said to me, it sat me down and said, because I was actually doing fashion photography at this point, and for other labels as well. And he said, either you need to stop this being such a big hobby, or you need to make this your profession. We need to make a change in what you're doing, because the ladybirds are taking over your life. And I decided that I couldn't not do the art thing. So I became an artist, and we changed. Like, Angus actually came on board and to help me do all of this. I was so passionate about it. And then I ended up with books, traveled the world, had exhibitions all around the world and galleries, and we ended up with our own gallery in Byron Bay, which is a beautiful place. And I was crazy about it until I wasn't. Same thing that happened with the other thing. And for the rest of the world, it would have appeared quite sudden, but for me, it was a gradual thing. And then eventually you have to admit to yourself, I'm not happy doing that. I have leanings to other things, but I had discovered journaling, and I had other stuff going in my life, and that's when I made this big change. I'd always had my drawing and painting as my hobby, and then that became this bigger and bigger and bigger obsession, the same thing. So I take that leap. I can't not take that leap. So I feel like I've had 3 major phases so far. When someone says, where did you start? That's where it started. And it's just been this progressive journey. And it's not all smooth sailing and all fantastic all the time, but I've always been lucky in that I have my own style in what I do, mainly because I've put in so much work into whatever it is, I guess. But anyway, blah, blah, blah.
It sounds like Angus is a patient man.
Oh, you have no idea. He's amazing.
That's great. And that's great that he's there as a support to you. I hear a lot of women in the forums online talk about how their boyfriend or spouse just doesn't get it or doesn't support their work. And I think it's not impossible to achieve success without it, but it certainly makes a big difference when you have that person in your corner. So.
Oh, definitely. And it doesn't have to be a spouse. But then what I've discovered is if you do have an important person in your life that isn't exactly supportive from the get-go. So I'm thinking of my dad, who's always been supportive of me as a person, but sometimes people worry about, they have their own hang-ups about whatever it is that you're doing. And sometimes they can't even, they're not even aware of them, they can't vocalize them. So they're just worried for you as a person that, oh, you know, how you, like they can't conceive how you could make it as, you know, whatever it is, because they couldn't do it themselves. So, and they just have that concern. But what I've learned is that if they are critical, I try and look at it from that perspective. That's not me, that's their issues. And to kind of not listen to what it is that they're saying, not put import, because it's a non-qualified opinion.
Right.
Sometimes
right.
when it's, I don't know, that makes it difficult. And then it just becomes important to find that support somewhere else. And how awesome is it that we have these online communities? And I, in my workshops, have so many girls who are online connections. That is their art community, and they don't have anyone, no friends or people who love them, of course, but they don't understand their need to be creative and that creative urge. And it's so important to, you know, have that support,
Right.
and you don't feel alone. Otherwise, that, you know, you might go into the artists of old, and you know, where people turn to drugs or whatever else. You know, we've heard of so many of the masters who had terrible lives because they didn't have that support.
Right. Right. They had salons where they would discuss their work with other artists, and that's really all they had. We have the internet, and that has really allowed us to share and learn and form relationships. Absolutely. So, how would you describe your art or your style?
Well, it's definitely mixed media because it's a mixture of medias. I would describe it as whimsical, colourful. It's very intuitive and loose, and I love drawing girls. I just love drawing eyes, if I'm completely honest, and hair. I do quite like drawing hair. How do I describe my art? Yes. I think it's very often art is described after the fact. I think it's quite hard for an artist. I can tell you why maybe I create it or how I create it. How would you describe my art?
Colorful, whimsical, happy, almost play-like, because much of your work is, well, girls, but mermaids and fairies and just things that bring magic.
But you know what's funny is I would say it's happy. I'm happy when I'm not always, when I'm creating, I'm not always happy. I'm in the moment. So I'm not like, oh, la, la, I'm so happy. I'm in there and I'm doing it. I'm happy after, or sometimes I'm exhausted, or I'm happy. It makes me happy that I am creative and that I get to do that. But what I find fascinating is I would describe my work as happy as well, but so often the figures in my work, they're not happy. They're not smiling. They're not, oh, like I smile just about all the time. Like the muscles in my cheeks must be some of the strongest muscles in the world. And but the artwork itself isn't happy. And I know a lot of girls would describe and how much happiness they get from their creating their work. But the faces themselves, I see the faces I create as very calming and content. Sometimes people see them as looking melancholy, but I see them as the girls as thinking and pondering and calming. And I think that's part of why they keep on coming out, because they just help ground me and just keep, you know, one little foot on the ground, which I need.
Well, if you look at the girl behind you, she may have a contemplative face, but the colors are so happy.
Yes, the colors.
I don't think it necessarily has to be communicated in a smile. It could be feeling. So
absolutely.
Your work makes me happy. So.
I'm glad. It makes me happy. But I just find that an interesting, that was just an interesting side thought, but I would describe it as happy. But yeah, the color is what attracts us. If you walk into, you know, any great art museum or any gallery and you see an artwork and it's, you know, a fair way away, the first thing you notice is the color. And if the colors attract you, or a color in there attracts it, you walk towards it. And if there's nothing in there to make your eye happy or interested, then you look around for something else. So
until you find something. Yeah. Well, that brings me to reminds me to ask you, are there colors that you tend toward more often than others, and are there colors that you try to stay away from?
I definitely tend towards turquoise. There's just something about turquoise and aqua that it's an emotional connection that I have with those colors. And another color that I use a lot in my work is purple, and it's not a color I connect with. And when I had my website redesigned, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to do it myself. I could actually employ a professional person who knew what they were doing, and it, you know, didn't drive me crazy. It was at the time probably the pinnacle of my career. Oh, it was just such a relief. And she picked purple as one of my major colors, like mauves and lilacs, those sorts of purples. And I was aghast. I was like, purple? I don't know. No. Turquoise, yes. But purple, no. And she just was like, have another look at your work. It's in everything. And it is. It damn well is. And I've come to, it's not a color I would put in my house. It's not a color I'm attracted to. It's just, it goes so well with aqua, the purples that I like. So purple is in there all the time. And one of my favorite art supplies is Moonshadow. It's a watercolor, and it's a purple that has blue that comes into it. And it drives me insane. My brain, I just can't tell you how much I love. Even talking about it, I want to run to my studio and just splash it around.
And I see how much
behind your wall.
Well, the funny thing is, I hate purple.
That's what I thought. That is what I thought.
Yeah. My favorite color is turquoise. And my main 2 floors in my house, it's open. All the walls are turquoise. And there's accents here and there. My kitchen is an apple green. And then when I moved out into this big space here, which used to be my garage for my studio, I found, of all things, a shower curtain that you see it in the window there. And I loved the colors. There was a plum and a hot pink and an orange and gray. And that's what I ended up doing my studio with. So, and it's funny because I've always thought I've hated purple, but yet in an odd way, I've been drawn to it on the fringes.
Yeah, but purple. There's warm and cool colors, and then there's purple, because purple is made from a warm and a cool color, and it has such a range, and an emotive color, and it's connected so much with the shadow side of things. And I think maybe it's indicative of the type of people that I'm attracted to and connected to, but we usually try and be positive. So I like to look to the positive and look to the bright and try and have gratitude for and appreciate things, and because I think happiness breeds and brings more happiness and joy. And purple, it's in that shadow side. So I think we're sort of looking towards the happy colors, but we need the purple. We need the purple, and we need it in our artwork. Kind of can ground things and balance things. And anyway, I find purple a fascinating creature.
It is, and even a flower has a shadow. So
yes, and shadows aren't black and grey. They're purples, and that's how I see shadows, especially in faces. It just allows life to shine through. I could talk all day about purple. Well, that's not my favorite color.
Maybe you'd need to put a class up on the
color purple
side of purple, the color purple. What advice would you give to someone who's starting out in art or as an artist?
Well, for a start, just starting out being creative is to take it slowly. And what happens, I know in my journey, I've always drawn and painted, but when I really started to concentrate on it more, I went into this mad frenzy of amassing art supplies. And I see that, that is very common. I don't know what I can see behind you. So you have rainbowitis. Yeah. I consider myself the original carrier, and I infect everyone. And sometimes people feel that in itself brings so much joy, having your tools around you. So I say, don't feel ashamed of that. That's part of the natural progression. If it doesn't happen to you, it doesn't matter. It'll come later at some point. And so I think carving out a space in your home environment that is just yours, that you don't have to pack up and put away, I think has a symbolic, even the smallest space, if it could be yours. I might take time to arrange that, but it says that part of you is open and ready for business whenever you need it, rather than having to pull stuff out and put it back out. You're spending time doing that. So I think the first step is to allow yourself that room, and try and create a space somewhere where, even if it's just a little travel kit that you can bring out on a favorite chair, something that's a bubble, and then try and squeeze it in wherever you can. So I say for my girls, inspires me to start with a small journal and take it with you so you can draw. Drawing is the cradle for all the visual arts, and people can and people who are scared of drawing listening to this will be, but everyone can draw. And even if it's just a scribble, there is some very strong connection that's to do with coordination. It brings up memory. It has all sorts of amazing benefits. The more you draw, the more creatively confident. These are just my beliefs. The more creatively confident you are, when you're feeling creative, that confidence, you draw more and you create more, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, or collage more, or whatever it is. And then the more you do, the better you get at it. And then you get to a point where you are very happy to take risks, because you can draw something again or create something again. And then you've got this confidence and this risk taking, be it ever so small, because you know that it's just a piece of paper and it's just a little bit of paint, and you don't have to be miserly or stingy with it, because you've got more time you're going to do, and you've got more supplies, just whatever price point, whatever budget you have, just actually using your supplies is very important. And then that starts to look, I think that's what talent is. It's that having that confidence, then taking those risks. That's what talent looks like to anyone else that's looking at you. And to anyone that's not indulging, not flexing those creative muscles, which I think are super important, it looks like magic. Whatever you're doing looks like magic. If you draw with a kid, draw with a child, and you can draw with them, they think you are a princess, goddess, Santa Claus, fairy, godmother, mermaid, unicorn, all wrapped up into one, because it's, I don't know, it's just something that it's easy to lose, but it's easy to get back.
Right.
Anyway, again, yabba yabba, but.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm loving it. I thought of three things as you were talking. One, I have been a supply hoarder and had a terrible case of rainbowitis since way back when. I've probably been creating some form of art for almost 20 years, and I have not stopped buying supplies. It doesn't get any better, it gets worse.
Okay, but let me just tell you, because I do love the show Hoarders, and Angus has sometimes accused me of being a hoarder, and there was an episode where they actually there is a difference between a hoarder and a collector. A hoarder is, it's all disorganized and you could never find anything, and there are dead cats in it and lunch from 6 years ago. No, we are not hoarders. We use it. It's not a museum. We use it. We do. So I say, never be ashamed.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not.
Look at my wall of paint back here. Do I need all of those paints? No. Yes. Can I mix all of those paints from 8 colors? Yes, probably. Would I rather have the cute bottles with all the pretty paint there? Because it makes me happy. It inspires me, and that's my choice.
Right.
And I don't have fancy shoes. I have
paint.
There
you go. Yeah, I'd rather buy paint than shoes. I live in flip-flops.
Sorry, I interrupted you. So that was point one.
That's okay. The second point was that you were talking about having your own space. And when I first started creating, I had a corner of a room. As each home that we moved into and each remodel, corner of a room to a converted bedroom, to a larger converted bedroom, to closing off the garage door so I can have the entire space out here as my studio with tables and a sitting area and lots of paint. So my area keeps getting bigger.
And do people come and join you in your area, or do they expect you to come out and be social?
No, they will come in, and they're welcome to come in unless the door's closed.
Oh, okay, so, good. That's a good organizational tool.
Yes, if the door's closed, then they know not to come in, such as now the door's closed. If not, we would get an assortment of kids, cats, dogs, and you never know what else. So, and the third thing I thought of when you were speaking was about taking risks. And that's when I knew that I had turned a corner in my art. When instead of just copying what I did, as when I was learning so much, when I started to take risks and say, well, what would happen if I put this here? Or what if I drew one of these on this? And that's when I knew that I had turned the corner, and I could almost take a step out on my own rather than always relying on copying to learn. So those are just 3 takeaways from that.
And learning is like I'm a lifelong learner. There's always more things to learn, and
absolutely.
Sometimes people get worried that if they take a class or a workshop and they are doing what the teacher is teaching, They're trying so hard to assert their own thing onto it straight away. And I say no, just let it, whatever is on offer, you let it wash over you, you take it in, you do whatever is being shared. If that means copying, then that's what it is. That's not going to be for the rest of your life. The very next time you do it, if you're not looking at whatever it is, your own sensibility, your own brain, your own creative force will just latch on to what it liked, what it found interesting, and it will play. And things might come through from all of the learning that we've all had. It will come through, but it always gets bent to your own will. So there's always room for taking on new things, and we're all open to looking at influences, and I find it so fascinating to see how those things wash through into my own work. So
I'm sure you see it with your students who all take the same class, and each maybe they have they're basing their work on your lesson, but as the course goes on, maybe by the end of it, they have their own little twist on it, and that's how we develop our own style.
Yeah, I can see the twist almost, even if someone is trying to copy something exactly, it still has a little twist, always, because it doesn't look exactly like mine. It looks similar, but then as people take that on board, that information, and then as I see their work developing on, out of the classroom, because the beautiful thing about online classes, and I use Facebook a lot for interacting with my students, is just nothing better than it. And I become friends with people and see their work. I love seeing how my influence is in, or my inspiration is in their work. And to me, it's almost a little bittersweet thing as I see it start to fade, and more and more of I'm just part of that journey. That is why I teach, is to help people as much as I can on their creative journey. I just want people to experience the same joy that I have experienced with art. So yeah, I love seeing my influence in there. Having said that, when I'm doing my workshops, if people if they take what I'm trying to teach into their own direction in a really big way right from the get-go, it gets hard to see if they've managed to get the lesson. So I like people copying me in the classroom. I actually quite enjoy that.
Well, it shows, and your love of what you do and comes through your teaching. So when you sit down to create, and I don't know if you do it on a schedule and say, okay, today I'm going to go in the studio from these hours, but what inspires you to create?
Well, at the moment, I've been taking my sketchbook and each evening, and I've been sketching a lot while the television is on, and so I'm sort of half engaged and with what's going on, but I'm doing a lot of drawing there, and I've got a little bit of a different I started the sketchbook, and there's a little bit of a different style in there for me, and I love it. So there's that. And then on a daily basis, my studio is actually I actually have a separate studio that is down a little winding path in the garden. It's my haven. And I go there almost every day and create. But usually what I'm creating down there is I'm videoing. So I video stuff even if it's not particularly for a class, because I don't know if it doesn't turn out to be anything special, I can just erase the video. But if it turns out that I discover something, or I might be able to use it as a YouTube video or something like that. So I am creating and having the video on, maybe even subconsciously creates a little bit more discipline or pressure to finish things
Sure.
in a couple of sittings. So it probably makes me stay there and work a little bit harder because I've got that, you know, that eye watching me.
Someone watch.
I have, and so I just have to make sure that that doesn't feel like work or become onerous. But it doesn't, so that's all good. And I also have, because at the beginning of this year, my New Year's resolution was to not sit down, because I'm sitting in my studio, I'm sitting at the computer when I'm editing videos, and that takes ages, and I'm sitting a lot. And I do exercise and all the stuff, probably, we can all do more. But I kept on reading that being sedentary and sitting is worse than sugar. It's like the big nasty. So I created in my office this little standing studio with a little console. Angus put it up on some blocks, which I still have to paint. And I created a little mini studio there as well. And I create there a lot. I do a lot of my random journaling. And I love that little space there. I just put some of the little track lights from IKEA under it. So I've got a little lit surface, and Angus put some glass on the top of the console for me. I painted it my favourite colour. And I can create standing, and it helps me stand, and it helps me, I test a lot of stuff. Like if I have a random idea about, oh, I wonder if that would or if, what that product does, I do a lot of that sort of stuff there as well. So I think that's added. Having a little creative station in my work, my office area has actually been really good. Is your work stuff in your art studio? Is it all on the one thing?
It's, yes, but it's a large space. So I have a table over there where I can push things around and make a lot of mess. I have this here, which is my desk, but I push the computer back, and it's about a 4 foot by 3.5 foot workspace. And then I'm surrounded by bookshelves and cases and drawers and everything.
All the yummy things.
Yes. And then over there's, I have cardstock and pattern paper and printers and embossing machines and silhouettes and all of that. So.
Gosh.
But yeah, so it's all in one place. You mentioned working in your art journal. Do you use a particular art journal that you really like, or do you bind your own?
I have everything. So on my table, my favourite commercial journal are the Strathmore journal, the hardbound Strathmore journals. So this is the watercolour paper, which I kind of was ignoring. I mean, I love them, but I wasn't using them so much because it is quite a rough paper. It says cold press, but it's kind of very textured. And so I was mainly using the smooth one, but I love this beyond comprehension. The watercolor Strathmore, the paper in it is yummy. Luckily, it doesn't matter if I lick it. So I love using those journals, and I always have many journals going at the same time. I've just come back from Japan, and when I travel, I love to make a journal that's just for that country. So then when I go back, you know, I would take the same journal. So this one is a book that I've completely stripped out. I got it because it's got a funny title. I don't know if you can see. I've got a plastic cover on it. It's called Covert Side Sketches, and it's 100 years old.
Really?
And it's actually a book about fox hunting, which I have no interest in at all. So I took the whole book out and filled it with all sorts of papers that I wanted to test. So I've got a variety of different papers. So I've got 4 signatures in there. I worked out some doohickey way of getting it all in there. And so I love working in journals like this where I've got all my own paper. But I also love working in journals where I've kept some of the original book and I've inserted some paper. So I've got a free video for that. If you have got any of my art lessons that I did with cloth, paper, scissors, it was a 6 supplies / series, and in the Facebook group that goes with that, there's a video, and I show you how I make one of those journals. So I take it out and put it in a really cool book, like Paris Sketches, that one's called. That was my Paris journal. And then I also love making huge journals, and I just about only work in journals. Every so often I accidentally work on a piece of paper, and it's usually so for instance, I know I've got one here. This is for a magazine article coming up with cloth, paper, scissors, and I was testing Jamie Doherty's new watercolor paper, and that's with Prima Marketing, and it's really weird paper. I really quite like it. It's got quite a strong undulating texture. So, but I kind of regret having this piece of loose paper. I'll have to work out some way of binding that in a journal, but I haven't got enough space there, so I'll have to work on that. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Maybe I could put it in that way, because just the loose pieces of paper, no. I like journals because if I don't like something, I just turn the page. I don't like it at that moment. I just turn the page and then start working on something else and something else, something else. And then if that has to dry, I can just grab another journal that's sitting around, and then when I finish at the studio, I can just take the journal with me, and I've got all of this work, and there's just something about having books and having just all of my work is on a bookshelf there. It's crazy. I can always scan it, blow it up, and print it and put it on the wall and have it as a big picture, but I'm so totally besotted with journals that I almost don't think of creating in any other way, unless it's in a workshop. And I have to. I like creating on wood, but then I found there's wood paper, and I can put that in my journal and I get the same effect. So
you don't ever create on canvas?
I used to. When I had my gallery, I was painting all the time, and the gallery would call, and the gallery manager would say, the walls are empty, it's a Saturday, everything has sold, we need more paintings. And I was like painting furiously, and eventually that became real work, and it sucked the joy out of painting on canvas for me. And painting on canvas had been my hobby, and there is something to be said of beware of making your hobby your work. I think as a creative person, if you decide to become an artist and take it from being your interest and just a creative passion that's for yourself, it's a good idea to keep part of that is for yourself as a hobby, that is just for exploring, and it doesn't matter what happens. So now my hobby is painting on canvas. So eventually I am planning on doing a class where because I do love painting big and I love painting on canvas, but it's something I do very slowly, very gradually. I've got a canvas. It might be 6 months before it's just really an outlet for putting colour, playing with colour, because it's just such a big space. I kind of like creating in things that I carry with me. Everyone's so different, and I know that will change over time, but yeah, kind of. And even with my art supplies, if they don't go in a journal, I'm a little bit, no. They go in the area of the studio that's not used as often. But yeah, I do paint on canvas and on other things, but I like paper.
You mentioned art supplies. What are, besides an art journal, the top 5 tools you think that any art journaler or art journalist should have in their arsenal?
Well, they probably have the basic stuff already, like the, pens and watercolor and because you can get a very cheap little watercolor set. Once you've discovered that watercolor is awesome, which is what it is, the difference between a little cheapy set of watercolors and the real deal is it's like not having a microwave and then getting a microwave, or not having a dishwasher and then getting a dishwasher. What was I thinking? What did I miss out on? So I would say a really beautiful set of watercolors. You don't have to have every color in the rainbow, but yeah, like your Daniel Smiths, Schminker, like good watercolors, that there's just so much joy in them. And a good paintbrush for watercolors. Never touch your good watercolor brush will last you forever because you don't touch it with acrylics. Acrylic ruins brushes, so you don't have to spend money on good brushes for acrylic paint. But watercolor, the same thing, a natural bristle brush or the Neptune series of brushes by Princeton are freaking amazing. They're so thirsty and gorgeous. So a good, you don't have to have every size, but that I think is so good watercolor set. The other ones I love are Peerless. For travel, I use them a lot. So watercolor, but I've never met a watercolor I didn't like. So whatever suits your budget, but watercolor is something you can build up onto. What else? Majors. Gesso. See, I'm a total stickler for Liquitex Gesso and Liquitex Matte Medium. And in fact, when I'm teaching at a workshop, I used to have a supplies list where people bring their things, and I would do a check. Everyone put their matte medium out on the table, and anyone with anything other than Liquitex, I would pick up and put in a little bag at the front to collect at the end of class. Because no, with other medium, because it just won't work with what I'm teaching, what my techniques are. Because you can't, a lot of them are plasticky, they're horrid, and they stay sticky and like Mod Podge. So, yeah, I would say. So they are very important to me, especially yeah, anyway, that's just me personally and the techniques that I use. I love my Epic pen. That's one of my favorite things. I've got an art supply store, so it's actually really hard for me to pick things because all of my favorite stuff goes in my shop. If I'm not using it and loving it, it's not in the shop. So if you ever want to know what my personal recommendations, they don't have to buy them from me, but you can see everything that's there. If you do buy them from me, I love you. But they're there. I put them in collections. So I love Copic and Mepsi markers, alcohol markers. They were the first thing that I used when I was fashion illustrating, the first medium that I really felt like I mastered. And I have a huge collection of alcohol markers. But what we stock is actually a very limited amount of colours because I have all the colours, but I use just really only a few. And there's 6 purples, 6 of the colours that I say I can't live without a purple in the Copics. Can you believe that? It's crazy. And no turquoises.
Wow. What are your, you mentioned that the only one that will work with the techniques you do, your top techniques. Always go back to.
Well, just about everything I do is I like to create on a surface. And so I do lots of different things to create that surface from when I'm doing watercolor, for instance, and I'm mixing on a, what do you call them, a craft sheet, a silicone, like a Teflon sheet. So I'm mixing color on that. And when I finish, rather than where I need to change the color palette dramatically, rather than just wiping it off, I have just pop a journal page down there and smush it around, soak up the paint. If I'm painting with acrylic, if there's any paint left over on my paintbrush, slap it down on any old page. If I've got a little bit of leftover molding paste or anything that I'm using, I pop it down. If I'm painting big on a canvas, I put a journal underneath the canvas under my easel, so any drips coming down land in the journal. So I've always got surfaces happening. Sometimes if I'm altering books, I've gessoed the pages to make the old paper stronger, and adding in collage and ephemera, and I need a matte surface to work on. So I'm very conscious of creating that matte surface, and that's why the Liquitex matte medium is so important, and the Liquitex gesso, it's got the right amount of matteness for watercolor. Most acrylic paints and gessos and matte mediums, you can't put watercolor on. You can hardly draw on them, but that brand you can. So if I ever change the formulation, I will make my own. Just have to work out how to do it. And then on top of that, I love using coloured pencils. So I would put my coloured pencils in. When you said the Essential Art Supplies, I miss these Prismacolors. But I'm also loving the Luminance range from Caran d'Ache. I don't have many of them. They're super expensive. They're light, fast. They're a professional quality pencil. They're as awesome as Prismacolors. They don't break as much, but they cost like 3 times the price. So I feel a little bit guilty recommending them because they're so expensive. But then again, you don't need every colour. So, but yeah, coloured pencils. And then I don't want to paint myself into a corner. Remember that cartoon where you've got the guy and he's finished painting his house and there he is in the corner and he's stuck there, he can't move. I like to always be creating surfaces and layers that are going to be easy for me to keep on creating on top of, so I don't have to have a battle with my surface. I can just keep on drawing, keep on using pens, keep on layering however much I feel like or not. So that's most of the techniques. That's just a natural way of working for me, I think.
Tell us, or just name a couple current artists that you admire.
Currently alive or current?
Alive.
Like, okay,
alive.
Gee, their art or the people? Because if it's people, then I just list off like Tamara Laporte, Chrissy Tomlinson, Donna Downey, people that are my friends.
Right.
But artists, and I love all of their work, but artists that I admire, I'm trying to think of whose books I've got recently that I love, love, love. Okay, can I just grab a book? I'll just be one sec. Where is it? Oh, there's a girl that I love, doll artists. And there's an artist, the book is called Enchanted Dolls. That's the website, Enchanted Dolls. I love that. So I love looking at all the Korean dolls and Monster High and Ever After High.
Right.
I'm not sure if you can, have I got any of my little dolls? I've got a lot of dolls in my office. It helps make my workspace fun. I'm all above me up there. I have 2 shelves full of Monster High dolls, and they have custom clothes. Oh, I love them. Their little hands and their cute little shoes. Anyway, so the artists that create for them, I find I really admire what they do and how much fun they've made dolls. You can have a Barbie or these crazy weird dolls that they're coming out with. They're so cool.
Right.
Oh my goodness, I just can't think of any. I'd have to go and have a look at my bookshelf.
That's okay.
I'll think of it as soon as we finish.
Oh, that's okay. Then you can send it to me and we'll be sure to post it with the interview. Do you have any products on the market?
Yes. Yeah, I've got my, I work with Peerless Watercolors. So they create, they're like flat little papers, sheets of watercolor, and I put them in my journal so I can carry a great big swathe of watercolor with me and just little aquash, a water brush, and
Brilliant.
lift a little bit of color. They're amazing. They've been around for about 100 years, and I've got 5 of my own colors that I've created with them. So I adore that. I also am working with Daniel Smith watercolors, who probably make the, I don't know if you can say the best watercolors in the world, but the watercolors they make are unique. Many of the colors. One of the colors is called Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. It's from Sleeping Beauty Mountain, and it's actually crushed turquoise. Hello.
Beautiful.
Genuine amethyst is actual crushed amethyst, and like there's a range of colors. So I've got a dot card that I do with them, and working more and more closely with stuff that they're doing. I could eat it's just, I've been painting with those paints and cried because they granulate and separate out and just do the craziest things, and it's beautiful, really beautiful what the watercolor does. I also have a set of watercolors with Schmincke, and that's my own set, like 20. It's their colors, like I haven't invented new colors for them. There's already like 200 and something, but just the way I've put the colors together. I have got my own stencils with Artist Seller, and when I was doing photography, photographing my bugs, I had stationery ranges. I've had 25 calendars and books and all sorts of things. I've got my book.
Yes.
It's been #1 on Amazon. Oh.
Yes.
So, I poured my heart and soul into my book, as I do with everything. Because I was going to be having a watercolor class, that would be launching in September. And I just realized I put so much into things that I didn't want to feel pressured, or I just hadn't left myself enough time. So I moved it, and I thought everyone would be disappointed and blah, 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 but I've got so many other things for people to do. It was fine. It was just my own. I put a lot of pressure on myself.
You do, but we'll patiently wait. We will. And I know that you have a class coming out anyway, coming up in November at Journal.
Yes.
Why don't you tell everybody a little about that class?
So Journal, my first, Draw Happy, Supplies Me, Beautiful Faces, Express Yourself, they're all technical classes, and you can see all of those on my website. So I'm building your skills up gradually, and I've designed them so they flow from one to the other, and it's figures and faces and getting those creative skills happening. So by the time you get to Journal and the other workshops that I've got that will be coming out, by the time you get to Journal, when I say let's draw pixies, you aren't panicking about I can't draw hands, or what watercolor, what am I going to use? You're thinking, oh, what color should I paint the pixie in? Should I do the pixie? Should I do 3 pixies or 2 pixies? You're thinking more imaginatively, not the technical or the panic stuff about, what am I going to do? And then, so the way I've got Journal is, yes, it is, we're doing elves and pixies and unicorns and mermaids, and that's the theme, but it's what's running under the class is it's still building those skills, and always I'm trying to get the creative confidence and give you more and more challenges, but you don't feel like it's a difficult challenge. It's a fun, inspirational thing. It's like, I think that is part of I don't want to call myself good, but a good teacher is you don't even realize you're learning. It's just you enjoy being there, and the learning is happening. It's not grunt work. It's this is awesome. You don't even realize it's happening. I'm hiding the vegetables in the what is it? Yeah, the vegetables in the meat.
An old mom trick, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What's next for you? What is something that you're hoping to do, or I'm sure if you have something planned that you might not be able to tell us yet, but maybe something that you'd like to do in the future.
Well, my next big things I've got coming up are my Paris and London retreats, which I love. I love my international retreats. They're a lot of work, like organizing them and getting everything ready and all of that stuff. But I get to go around international places that are amazing, that are inspiring, with artists, with creative people who love me. It's like a week long, being the bride for a week. It's the best thing ever. But it's a lot of it. It's quite an emotional experience because we're creative souls, discovering a place creatively. So I love my traveling and teaching, so there'll be more of that. And I just hope to make those trips more and more exciting. Like I want to, just for things that I want to go and do. So I don't know, like Morocco or, like the Bazaar in Marrakesh, can you imagine? Or, like one of those Alaskan tours, but art. So we're, using where you're like seeing narwhals and polar bears and killer whales and that sort of like out in nature and just like, but you're also warm and can be drawing as well and painting. So those sorts of things. I love creating art supplies and colour ranges. I think I'm a little bit of a colourist at heart, and maybe there's more of that in my future. That would be really cool, but not for the sake of it, just for the sake of having to have my name on something. That doesn't interest me at all, but creating things that are helpful for people so that they can keep on. So it just removes any difficulties. It removes blockages or hiccup points, which can make someone stop and think, I'm not good at this. I'm not Picasso in the first 5 minutes. It just is something that keeps that playful edge happening, that sort of thing. But I'm so happy doing what I'm doing that I'm pretty happy for things just to be as they are, and just creating new classes and interacting with the people that are doing them, either in online or in real life. To me, that's a really nice life, and I like the evenness of that, because I've travelled a lot in my life, and I love travel, but I love being at home, my house, my home, the property. It's called The Nest, and I like being in my little nest as well.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
looking forward to more time here.
I had hoped to accompany you on your trip to London, but by the time this airs, I'll be recovering from hand surgery. So I won't be able to travel or do any of that for a little bit during the fall. So I'm so sad. But
I hope that goes well. I'm sure it will.
I'm sure it will. So at below this video, we'll be sure to include all of your links so everybody can find you everywhere and stalk you, follow you like I do.
Well, there's an official term for that, don't you?
There is?
We took a vote in the classes, and it's more people that have done lots of my workshops. They're called Davin Peeps. That is a word someone came up with. We voted, and I think that is so funny. I love it.
I remember that in the Supplies Me forum on Facebook. Yeah, I do remember that. So I'm a Davin Peep. Yes. And I wear the badge proudly. We need shirts, I think.
Yes, well, it has to say beloved Davin Peep, because you're my beloved Davin Peep.
Well, we'll have to find someone. Maybe we'll organize an order there. Before we wrap up, I want to finish with some fun tidbits to get to know you on a different level. So are you ready?
Yes.
So I'll ask the question, just first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Favorite snack food?
Oh. Salt and vinegar chips.
Yum. Favorite musical artist or artists?
Oh, Florence and the Machine. She is to watercolor. She is to music what Moonglow Daniel Smith is to watercolor. Just oh my Lord, I can't. I think she should just sing every song ever created and just record songs every day so I can hear her voice in every song.
Are you currently reading any book right now?
I've actually had trouble settling into a book after the Hunger Games because it was so good, but I love the girl that circumnavigated Fairyland, and I'm reading the next one, The Girl That Fell Beneath Fairyland. It's fabulous.
Really? I haven't heard of that. I read quite a bit. Television show you just can't miss.
I've just started watching Boardwalk Empire. Love. And yeah, it's just really good.
Coffee or tea?
Tea, definitely.
And one odd thing we probably don't know about you.
I hinted at it earlier, but I really am crazy about ball-jointed dolls. I've just ordered an Alice in Wonderland costume for one of them so that I have a full Alice in Wonderland theme happening on one shelf. And I have a Gwen Stefani doll, and she's in an Alice in Wonderland costume, but I need, so that is being made for me as we speak. And I love them. So yeah, I know it's a bit strange, but so what?
That's okay. That's okay. Aren't we a little creative in our thinking? So should be as well in our collections. So
that's right.
Well, I have truly loved speaking with you, and I know that I've loved getting to know you and your thoughts on art and our supplies and techniques and your process. And I'm sure that everyone in our community at Irreversibly Moi will love it just as much. Be sure to everyone check out the links, find Jane online, check out that Joino class. I know it's going to be amazing. And Jane, I thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sue. It's been lovely talking to you.
All right. Well, everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.